Hey, everybody, this is TJR.
And this is Robert Kinsler. And TJ, today is a big day. We're going to be discussing the brand new Rolling Stones album. Now, Hackney Diamonds marks the Rolling Stones' first new album of original material since 2005's A Bigger Bang. The band's current lineup of Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Ronnie Wood is showcased here on a lineup without the late drummer Charlie Watts. Steve Jordan is playing drums on most of the album tracks. However, late drummer Charlie Watts is featured on two of the tracks, Mess It Up and also Live by the Sword. Live by the Sword additionally features bass from former Stones bassist Bill Wyman, which is very cool.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to talk about this track by track, first of all. But before we start, any opening thoughts that you'd like to share?
Big picture, this does not sound like a band that's kind of tired and limping to the finish line. The exact opposite. I mean, this sounds like a band that's inspired, that has something to prove, that's on a mission. And I'll say in particular, I'm blown away by Mick Jagger's vocal performance across the album.
I would agree. I know before we filmed this, of course, you expressed that you felt very enthusiastic about this album. And I have a lot of good things to say. I'm probably going to be a little bit more critical about some aspects of it than you are. But I would agree with you. This definitely is everything you just said. It is not a band that's limping towards the finish line. It's a band. This album has a lot of exuberance in it. Even on the tracks that I may not be as excited about as just the actual songs themselves, the exuberance is undeniable. The feeling of, like you said, they've got something to prove, and that if this is their last album, they're going to do everything they can to go out with a bang.
Exactly.
That shows. The passion definitely shows on this album. And I think that's going to be the primary thing that will carry listeners through this. Longtime fans who have very strong ideas of what the Rolling Stones should and shouldn't sound like. It's the exuberance that I think will carry them through it more than anything else, even on the tracks that maybe they're not as excited about. So let's talk about them now. First, we've got Angry, which of course we talked about previously when it was first, released. You can all watch that video if you want. We had our thoughts on it. Anything new you'd like to say now that you've heard it in context with the rest of the album?
As we both said, I think we were both
kind of
we were both impressed. We were both impressed by Angry, but I think we had kind of a lukewarm response overall to it. I mean, Obviously the band sounded great. Mick Jagger sounded great. It had a great riff and stuff. But now listening to it within the context of the album, it does strike me a lot stronger, and the song has grown on me. And so I give it, definitely a higher grade than I did upon our initial review that we did in that first video, TJ.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Now that I've heard in context with the album, now that I've seen how it flows from this one to the next song and the one after that, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, it works a little better for me. Also, we're filming this Thursday evening. The album releases tomorrow on Friday, which is probably when this video is going to premiere. And prior to that, we'd only heard streaming quality. We were very thankful and grateful to the record label that provided us with an early stream access in full quality. And I think that makes a bit of a difference. I noticed the drums and bass interplay a whole lot more listening to it here in high quality.
Right, exactly.
Full quality. Yeah, I realized, okay, I'm really noticing that a lot more. Yeah, it's might not be one of my favorites on the album. It's not one of the highlights, but I definitely like it more. I would agree with you. So next we have Get Close. Now, if you don't mind, I'll opine first on this one.
Oh yeah, go ahead, TJ.
Okay. And then you can follow up. This is probably one of my favorite tracks on this album. We've got strong bass and drum groove, just locked in. We've got very strong guitar riffs. We have very strong guitar interplay between Keith Richards and Ron Wood. This song is not only very upbeat, it's also very uplifting. uplifting. And this song probably more than any other, when I'm listening, makes me want to get up out of my chair and start moving. I understand we do have some piano on this one from Elton John as well. I just thought I'd point that out. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. And if you would like to opine,
yeah, no, it's a good song, and we didn't mention it before, but it has, and I don't know who performs on it, but there's a great sax solo, and I also like the long ending too. I just think it's like the band is like probably like what you're saying as well. Obviously, they're having fun here, and they don't want the fun to end. It's just a great track. It really lures you in. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I love this one.
So that brings us to the next track, depending on you. And I'm this time, if you would opine first, please, and then I'll follow.
No, this is, again, and I'm obviously a big fan of this album. I think that's already clear to everyone out there. This is a beautiful country tinged ballad. It's semi-acoustic. And for me, it's among the highlights on the album. I think the arrangement is absolutely gorgeous, and I think the song is strong from start to finish. What are kind of some of your general thoughts on it, TJ?
Well, I agree. This is a very 70s. It starts, at least. I feel the song starts as a very 70s style Stones acoustic ballad with some country influences, which, of course, they flirted with in the past. I think it starts really well. I think the opening verse is really strong. I do really like Mick Jagger's vocal. It's really emotional. I love everything about it. The guitar interplay again. It does, when it gets closer to the chorus, start to veer into some of the modern country style of songwriting and production sheen. And I'm not a big fan of modern country. I'm not a big fan of the majority of it. But yeah, it doesn't veer too close to it, but it veers a little close. But I think it's still a really enjoyable track overall. Very enjoyable track. After that, we have the song that features Paul McCartney on bass, and that is Bite My Head Off. And Robert, you go ahead first.
Well, I'll say, I listened to it a few times to make sure my perception was right. But, this is a true punk rock track, right? I mean, it has a ferocity of kind of like the Sex Pistols or something. It really does. Sir Paul, gets down and dirty with the bass playing. And I kept thinking when I was listening to this track, this is a band that's not going to go quietly into the night. The Rolling Stones, along with Paul McCartney, are really, ferocious here. And, it's not just like they're doing it as a curiosity or just to do it. I think the song really works. I think that it's very powerful and the context of the album, and maybe it's too soon to say, but in a way it's kind of like thinking back to Goat's Head Soup, where the Stones were doing different things on that album, and some people loved Goat's Head Soup, some people didn't like it. But I think this is about the time where I started thinking this is the Stones kind of trying to go all over the place, all the things that they enjoy: country, western, hard rock, blues rock, and I really like this track in the context of the album.
When I wrote my notes on this one, I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words. That's all I wrote. I wrote very raw, very punk, very Sex Pistols.
Right. Oh, that's funny. So you heard it too.
Yeah, I heard it too, but that's all I wrote.
Yeah.
And yes, I will agree with you. I think this song works best in context with the rest of the album. Exactly. I think it's probably going to grow on me as time goes too. This is the most punk I can think the Rolling Stones have sounded. Granted, I've heard almost all of their albums. There's maybe 4 I haven't heard, but based on what I've heard, this is about as punk as I've heard them get.
Yeah. And I know over the years, I think Paul McCartney has talked about doing a punk song. So maybe he was all on board with this, saying, hey, here's my chance. I mean, it truly is like old school punk. I mean, it's funny to hear the Stones doing that, and Paul's bass playing, that solo where it's all distorted and gnarly and stuff. I just love that. I mean, it's just a thrill to hear them. I mean, these guys are all around 80 years of age, just rocking out. I mean, more power to them,
Yeah, I agree. More power to them. And you're right. It's not a novelty. You can feel the emotion and the passion in that. And so that's why it works. That's why it doesn't come off as a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
So that brings us to the next song called Whole Wide World. And so I'll opine first this time. In my opinion, it is the guitar that really elevates and pushes this song through. It feels very 80s in a good way. It reminds me of something that Blondie might have recorded. I can picture Debbie Harry singing this one. And go ahead and please share your thoughts.
It's funny, and just so everyone out there knows, we did not discuss our notes. Let me just read mine note for note. It's funny how a lot of what we heard is the same. I said, this is an instantly infectious rocker, a timely song about mortality and facing challenges head on. Sounds like something the Stones may have recorded in the 1980s. It's funny, we both keyed into that. But it's really a great track bolstered by an incredibly catchy chorus. You know, and let me just read a couple of the lines because I think the lyrics here really add to the power. This is my favorite song on the album. So it said, when the whole wide world is against you and you're standing in the rain, when all your friends have left you down and treat you with disdain, when the whole wide world's against you and life's got you on the run and you think the party's over, but it's only just begun. I just love, you know, it's this great melodic chorus and Mick Jagger just delivers it with so much feeling and authenticity. I mean, this is a band I'm genuinely surprised by just how blown away I was by some of the songs, particularly this one, TJ.
Awesome. That brings us now to the next track entitled Dreamy Skies. And this, along with a few others, is definitely one of the more authentically blues sounding tracks on the album. The instrumental opening of the song feels like it could have come off Exile on Main Street.
Exactly.
And along with the second track, Get Close, this one is for me another standout track. It is another one of my favorites on this album.
Yeah, and on my notes, same thing I said. This is a great country blues song. I mean, again, very authentic. You know, it's the Stones kind of revisiting what they've done since the beginning of their career more than 60 years ago. And yeah, very impressive.
Next, we have Mess It Up. And this is a track here I'm kind of on the fence about. There are aspects of it that I like, some of it from a technical standpoint, you know, like, oh, that's cool the way they're playing that. You know, I'm digging on just how they're, the bass and the guitar and everything, how it's all kind of working together. This song I described as embracing 70s disco. I call it the musical cousin, the modern day equivalent musical cousin to Miss You of some girls. But for some reason, I'm just kind of on the fence about it. There are aspects of it that appeal to me. There are aspects of it that don't appeal to me. So I want to give this one some more time before I say definite about it. Yeah,
and I think that's reasonable. I think I definitely like the funky quality to it, and it's great to hear. I believe this is one of the tracks that Charlie plays on. So it's nice to hear him playing with the other members of the Stones and stuff. I wouldn't call it the strongest song on the record, but it's very good, and I think it fits within the context of the album pretty well.
Yeah, not a bad song in my mind, but not the strongest track either. But
exactly,
a little bit of time. You know, we were just very lucky that they let us hear these streams so that we could do this before the release and have this out on Friday. We haven't lived with it very long, you know.
Exactly. And I think that's important. And as we've talked about, both being music reviewers, traditionally, we always like to listen to an album at least 3 times, but it's also nice if you can listen to it with some time between the listens.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that benefit, especially you. I know you got the stream a little bit later, TJ, but I'm very thankful to Geffen Records for providing us the opportunity to hear the album ahead of time.
Yeah. But again, want to make it clear to everybody that we've only lived with this for just a very short period of time.
Right.
So these are just kind of our initial thoughts.
Exactly.
And, we reserve the right to say, hey, that one's growing on me more. I like it a lot. Next, we have Live by the Sword. And if I understand correctly, this is the last session to feature Charlie Watts. and this is the one that also features Bill Wyman, or is the only
Oh,
one
I
that
believe
features
so.
Bill
I
Wyman?
believe you're right. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
I'll
think
let you opine
and
first.
I think it also has Elton John on piano. But and if we're mistaken, I know someone out there will correct us.
No, you're right. You're right. It
But
does.
I found this is, the way I described it, it's kind of like this bewitching blues rocker, and I liked how it slowly built up its power. And by the time it gets to the end run, it's really firing on all cylinders, and I really like this. And it's great to hear Charlie and Bill locked in, like they did on all those great classic recordings in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. So I was really happy to hear this, and I think this is one of those songs. It struck me the first listen, and every time I've heard it subsequently, I've enjoyed it even more.
Yeah, I wrote, very strong guitar riffs, great vocal hooks. Elton does a good job of filling in for Nicky Hopkins, who did all that signature piano on so many, all those Rolling Stone recordings. And that's kind of what I can picture. That's what he's trying to do his best to do. He's just emulate Nicky Hopkins and do his best job at giving it that flavor. So another strong track, in my opinion, with this one. And this brings us to the next track entitled Driving Me Too Hard. I'll go ahead and start with this one and let you follow. This is where I have to say, not my favorite track on this album. This song, I feel, pushes a little too hard towards modern country. Again, we all have our likes and dislikes, and a majority of modern country, it just doesn't do anything for me. So this song is pushing more towards that stylistically, not too hard, but enough that it's like, I'm kind of like, I'm not responding as well as I'd like to. Those are my thoughts, but please share yours.
Yeah, TJ, on this song, what I would say is maybe we're mostly in agreement, but I will tell everyone out there, I love the chorus. I thought that really stood out to me. And then I love the instrumental break in the song too. That's really lovely. So those are some things that my ears really wrap themselves around on this track. It wouldn't be the first song I recommend to people to listen to off the album. But again, in the context of the full album, I think that the band was really working hard to do an album where everything was kind of at a really high level, and so on. And there, I give them a lot of props on that. Yeah,
as you had said, as we said earlier, the enthusiasm, regardless, I agree with you 100%. They're always, whatever the song, even if I may not be into the song, I can tell I can feel the passion. Is what I'm trying to say here. So you're right, and that's what I think carries you through the tracks. Maybe that if you don't care for certain tracks, it's the enthusiasm of the performance that's going to carry you through when you listen to it. So that brings us now to the one track that features Keith Richards on lead vocals, Tell Me Straight. And so this time you take the lead, and then I'll follow up.
Well, yeah, I found this to be very beautiful, and love Keith singing here. It's very confessional, and I love that line where he sings, "It's my future all in my past." I found that really resonate with me because obviously, as you and I have talked about, these are artists that far more time is in the rearview mirror than is ahead. So it's neat to see the Stones kind of being confessional and kind of facing kind of their mortality. These are songs like this one particularly. This is not a song they would have done probably obviously in the 60s or even in the 70s, but it's neat that they're around and able to really deliver a powerful song like this. And I love Keith's vocals on here very much.
I do too. And picking up on what you said about that line of lyric, not only is it about that lyric that you quoted, about is my future in my past, not only looking at mortality, but just kind of the idea that for a lot of people out there, for a lot of the general public, the Stones are just the old hits, and that everything is held up to that standard. Everything is held up to the nostalgia they feel for those old hits, because the Stones have made good music in past that time period, past that classic period of the 60s and 70s and maybe the early 80s,
Right.
where most people focus on mostly the 60s and mostly the 70s. And
Right.
so is my future in my past, I kind of feel like that's kind of a little bit, wondering, will I be recognized for what I did after? And
Yeah.
that includes Keith's solo stuff too.
Right, exactly.
He's done some very good solo stuff. So
Right. And he's been critically acclaimed for that, but like you're right. I mean, with the whole hit machine, has it got the widespread recognition it deserves? Obviously it hasn't. Yeah, but good points, TJ.
But beyond that, I would just say, like you, I like the very dark, mysterious guitar, arpeggiated playing that he does on that one. I'm guessing he wrote that one because I don't have access to credits on this. Also, I think this song will creep up on most listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those that just creeps up on you slowly. So now we go to the second to the last track, Sweet Sound of Heaven, which of course was a pre-release,
mm-hmm.
which we both already commented on, but it's your turn to go first. So go ahead.
Well, and I think we were really both pretty enthusiastic.
Extremely positive.
Track. Yeah, and I've listened to it many times since we did our previous video, and I'm still very enthusiastic about this track. I just love kind of the combination of gospel and soul. I love Stevie Wonder's contributions with the keyboards, and I love Lady Gaga's contribution. She's not over the top. I think all of the contributions only add to the power of the track. And I know as we talked about it, it's a pretty long track, the long version that's on the album. But I don't think it overstays its welcome. I think that I really recommend this one.
Yeah, my enthusiasm for this track has not waned either. In fact, I've grown to like it more with each listen. It is one of the highlights of the album. It's up there with the other ones that I said I think are very strong. Mm-hmm. It is definitely a highlight. And I will point out something, just kind of off of what you said about the contributors. Stevie Wonder, Lady Gaga, and even on the other tracks, Paul McCartney, Elton John. Everybody is really doing their best to service the song.
Right. Good point.
Everybody's doing their very best to service the song. That's the most important thing with these guest appearances. We don't, usually when you have a guest appearance, they're singing. You'd have Stevie Wonder singing. You'd have Elton John singing, but they're just being part of the band. Elton's doing his best to say, okay, how would Nicky Hopkins approach this? I think the same thing with Stevie Wonder. He's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
He's also trying to he's thinking of those classic tracks. He's doing his best. I think that's what Lady Gaga's doing. She's listening to a lot of the classic female background vocals that were done on Stones tracks. She's trying her best to just be part of that, to live up to that legacy. Everybody that's playing on it, that's a guest star. Yeah. I feel like they're all doing that. They're putting the songs first. It's not about them as a star. It's about the Rolling Stones. It's about their legacy, and it's about the songs. And that's what I think I really like about all the guest appearances on this album, all of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great. So now we go to the last track on the album, Rolling Stone Blues, which is an acoustic cover of the Muddy Waters song Rolling Stone, retitled here as Rolling Stones Blues.
Right.
Rolling Stone Blues, excuse me, just retitled slightly, but it's the same song. A song that they never covered until now, and it's your turn to go first.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about. This is a song that I believe Muddy Waters recorded at the dawn of the 1950s, so this song has been around for a while. This is traditional acoustic blues, and I know I mentioned it earlier. When you hear this track, it's like you hear kind of the genesis of the Rolling Stones, their love of American blues and how deeply they were influenced by that. And then they made it their own, obviously, into something very successful and signature to the band. But, I just love this. And, and it is, like you said, if this is the Rolling Stones' final album that they do of new music, how great is it? Because, when they say Rolling Stone, this song is apparently what influenced the Rolling Stones to name their band that. So it's kind of like a neat tribute to their genesis as a group.
Yeah. It is a perfect song and a fitting song to end this album with, especially if it is going to be their last one.
Exactly.
It's a very fitting ending. In fact, this album actually has two great ending tracks. Either one of them would have worked. If they had ended with Sweet Sound of Heaven, just how uplifting and powerful that is, and with those lyrics about "I let the old think they're still young," and that's sung without being sardonic at all. It is sung with such a sense of jubilance, which we don't normally associate with the Rolling Stones. Jubilance, that's more like a Beatles thing, a Paul McCartney thing.
Right.
But it works. It's working. That could have been the ending of the album, and we would all have thought, great ending, fantastic ending. But then we've got this second ending here that's almost like an epilogue, a second ending, where they cover this song, and it's like, ooh, that's a good ending too. Thank you. I applaud them for both of those. I feel like this album got an ending, and then then Rolling Stone Blues is an epilogue.
You're right.
So yeah,
I agree with you.
Oh, and one other thing, I understand from what I've read that they do have roughly 3/4 of a follow-up album left over from these sessions. So I feel pretty certain this is going to be their last album. Although I could be wrong. I hope I am. I'm sure, but they have quite a bit already in the can there. So there is the possibility of an album, or this is the other thing that could happen. Maybe 6 months down the line or so, or a year down the line, we see the release of a deluxe edition, with an additional disc with extra tracks, with those tracks on it. I don't know.
That would be nice. Yeah,
possibility. Just want to put that out there into the internet, Ethernet, whatever you want to say. So there's that possibility too.
I'm going to wrap my brain around to a few days ago when I first played, streamed the album all the way through. I was genuinely blown away. I didn't know what to expect because, like we both said, we weren't sure how much we loved Angry, but then as the album started to play, I said, wow, this is a really phenomenal album. This is a fantastic addition to the Stones discography, and I'm very excited that the band put the effort and especially with the passing of Charlie Watts, that they felt compelled to give the world this record, and that they, like we talked about, they involved some other really great talent along with and all those key players, I think, only added to the magic and the power of the album.
So I felt like, a lot of times the opening advanced single is that way. Mm-hmm. It's the deeper tracks on the album that you're going to really like more.
Exactly.
And I feel like with Angry, that proved to be true. It was a good song, but the deeper tracks were more to our liking. My only complaint is that there is on a number of the tracks this very noticeable commercial sheen. And I said it about Angry too. There's this very noticeable commercial sheen. It doesn't kill the album. In some spots it works. I just wish that more of this album's, just the recording, had captured the rough and readiness of Blue and Lonesome. Mm-hmm. Which a lot of people said, and myself included, that if that was going to be the last Stones album, it was a great ending. It was a good fitting ending because they came back full circle. So we've actually got two ending albums, just like we have two ending songs on this one. We've got Blue and Lonesome, them coming full circle to an album of blues covers. And then we've got this.
Yeah, Hackney Diamonds.
This album here, new original material. And on one track, we've even got, we've got Charlie Watts and Bill Wyman there with Mick and Keith and Ron, for one track. So overall, like I said, I have a few minor complaints about this album. It doesn't kill it for me. Overall, this is a solid album. It's better than we have any right to expect from rock veterans of this age. They did not phone this one in. You're right, Robert. They did not phone this in. You can tell they put the passion into it.
Yeah.
That's what I keep saying. That holds up.
It's apparent. Yeah. I think every track that rings true. Yeah. So like I said, I give this an enthusiastic endorsement, and and it sounds like you overall like it too. So I think we both would encourage everyone out there to check this out.
Go check it out. Absolutely. So with that said, everybody, we will ask you your thoughts. Have you heard the album yet? Please share your thoughts. Tell us as much as you want. If you want to go track by track, please do. Put it in the comments. We'll all read it. And or if you just want to give us a few lines about it, let us know. We're curious to hear what you have to say. As always, if you like these videos, hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a video. And I want to give a thank you to the patron supporters. Patron supporters do get exclusive weekly videos not available on this channel. And everybody, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you all in the next video. Thanks so much for joining today, Robert. Appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome, TJ. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Y'all take care. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.